The Star and D'Amico Show is brought to you by cheapesttshirts.ca. If you're looking for quality gear without overpaying, shop cheapesttshirts.ca. Huge selection for men, women, and kids. Tees, hoodies, headwear, bags, and more. Proud Montreal business. Order today, ship today, delivery tomorrow. That's cheapesttshirts.ca. Local, fast, and affordable. Brought to you by instacustoms.com. Do you need custom gear from a local Montreal business? Instacustoms.com has you covered. Custom shirts, hoodies, hats, and more made your way. Fast turnaround, great quality, and proudly Montreal-based. Check out instacustoms.com. Brought to you by Cabletel. For trusted alarm systems in Quebec and Eastern Ontario, choose Cabletel. Over 20 years of expert installation and top-tier protection for homes and businesses. Check out Cabletel.com. Email them info@Cabletel.com. It's Cabletel. Peace of mind you can count on. Brought to you by Morella's Steakhouse. Looking for an unforgettable night out? Morella's Steakhouse on Highway 132. It's just 15 minutes from Montreal, serving up premium cuts and bold flavors, and no tax on your bill. Book your table tonight at morellassteakhouse.ca. Taste excellence tonight. Brought to you by Little Bear. Give your pet the best with Little Bear Pet Supply. It's a proudly family-owned business here in Montreal for over 30 years. Chuck, Evie, and their all-star staff have you taken care of with all the top brands at the best prices, and they really care for your pets. Shop online at littlebearonline.com or visit them on St. Catherine across from Westmount Square. It's Little Bear Pet Supply. Brought to you by McLean's Pub. Head over to McLean's Pub, 1210 Peel Street in the heart of downtown Montreal. Great food, cold drinks, and big games on all the screens. McLean's Pub, good times and great company. There's Marco D'Amico. I'm Sean Starr. Here we are in the aftermath of the glass being broken. And by that, I mean the men's Olympic hockey tournament got off to an awesome start for Habs Nation. And Marco, it appears that Juraj Slafkovsky, off helping lead Slovakia to a bronze medal in Beijing 4 years ago, man, no problem. Guy picked up exactly where he left off. He scored 7 goals in that tournament a year ago. And here he is with a monster performance. 2 goals, 1 assist for a 3-point verdict. And let's call it, man, a little bit of an upset. Slovakia over the defending gold medal winners in Finland in a 4-1 final to get this tournament going.
Yeah, Olava just played a fantastic game in nets,
Did
44
he ever?
saves. But
Yeah.
but I mean, again, the Slovaks did a really good job of limiting the Finns to the outside and really kind of keeping them boxed out. Uh, but we have to go back to the performance of Juraj Slafkovsky. To me, again, just MVP level performance from him in that first game. No excuse now that there's no NHLers at these Olympics. There
Mm.
are. So it goes to show you how he's kind of evolved as a line driver in his own right since being put on that second line in Montreal. And I think, everything we kind of talked about when we were projecting his kind of performances, his ability to protect the puck, his ability in transition, the fact that, due to unfortunate Italian construction limitations, which I
Yeah.
know way too much about, there's a much smaller neutral zone that he's just feasting in because of his reach, because of his size, because of his puck protection. And I think that was put on full display. And yes, the goals were the goals, but I think his overall play was excellent. He was strong in the defensive zone. Just to me, an overall strong player. And again, taking advantage of that ice, everything that Martin St. Louis kind of has been working on him with was put on full display in this game. And, one thing, Sean, that keeps me thinking now, that second goal he scored on the power play,
Mm.
coming down from the point,
Rip City, baby.
Slavkovsky in that high slot area, just
Uh-huh.
absolute money, absolute money. But to see him wire a shot like that,
Yeah.
you haven't seen him being able to do that on the power play from that angle because of the way the Canadians are set up. Maybe nota bene for Martin St. Louis.
Ah. And it's funny too, right? Because I loved, just to follow up, I guess, on your description of his second goal, Rip City. It reminds me, obviously, UC Saros, his reaction when that goal went by him. He's like, "What? What? Did anyone see that? Because I didn't see that." And the other thing that it reminded me of, Martin St. Louis on the, a day removed from his 4-year anniversary, hired on by the Montreal Canadiens. I remember just before the break, he was doing some one-on-one work, and he was doing it with big number 20. And one of the things he was working on Slavkovsky with was the bumper position, kind of, showing him,
Pivoting.
hey, listen, maybe this is the better angle. And lo and behold, I think that very day he scores a goal, and there he was yesterday. And the other thing I noticed, Marco, he carried the puck quite a bit, not something I'm used to seeing him do.
Well, it's something that he's used to doing internationally for Slovakia. That's something he did at the last Olympics. It's something he did at the World Championships. It's not something he really shies away from, and I think that's what I enjoy. It's what I want to see more of, in fact, in the NHL. And you have a lot of people today that are like, Juraj Slafkovsky is a different beast when he plays, for Slovakia versus the Montreal Canadiens. I personally disagree. I just think that it has more to do with, the way that he's utilized in Montreal. He's not necessarily asked to be the play driver, was not asked to be the play driver. Now, obviously, it's not by chance that this version of Juraj Slafkovsky is on pace for 65 points this season. And may even, crack the 70 point if he continues his upward progression. But what we're seeing right now is the vision that I believe Kent Hughes and Jeff Gordon had for him, because one of the things I will say about Juraj Slafkovsky, there's still elements for him to improve on, absolutely. But the one thing that makes Juraj Slafkovsky to me so interesting is that when you get into tournament or elimination settings, playoffs and or internationally, his game just goes up a notch. It's just like things just get serious, and the way he implicates himself when it's tighter, the games are faster. To me, I think is going to translate itself very well to when the Canadians have a contending window in the next coming years.
So we have our first upset of the men's tournament, and you're right to point out. I mean, the lopsidedness. Finland outshot Slovakia 18-5 after 20 and 39-25 overall. So not the best night for Nashville starter UC Saros. And before we get into Oliver Kapanen, a healthy scratch for the Finnish side, and get your take on that, considering the season, the offensive season he has, and we'll put that in context with the rest of his Finnish national teammates and pick your brain
Yeah.
on maybe, why. But before we get to that, Juraj Slafkovsky still very young in age, but this season and now in game one for Slovakia, he's playing a man's game. I think, that's kind of I think the evolution I've noticed from Slafkovsky. And I'm just great to see his dominant performance in the opening game for his country.
Well, you just look at his first goal, right? Just being able to intercept a pass, take
Yeah.
advantage of open ice. No one really covers him, goes around Saros to score that first goal. And, I think that's very indicative of his play. I think it's very indicative of where he's going. And I think if you look at like more of the details in his game, where his stick is positioned in zone entries, how aggressive he is when it comes to boxing guys out in the corner, the fact that he was out on the ice for multiple shifts while Finland had the extra man out, going 6-on-5. It was very indicative of the maturity that Juraj Slafkovsky has taken. And I think, again, when you see the way he's playing right now, I know the Canadians have options at that point, but he is a first line NHL winger, and damn good one at that. And I think players like him, the way he played today was unicorn level
Hmm.
play. It's the kind of, and I'm not about to say that he will be. I'm just saying it's the kind of play that you would have expected from Mikko Rantanen today, is the way that Slavkovsky played for Slovakia. And I think that to me says everything you need to know about his competitiveness. He may not have the skill level of a Rantanen, and I give him that. He may be just a smidge level below, where he's not going to be an 100-point player, but if he can be a 70 to 75, 80-point winger in his
Mhm.
prime, the Canadians are laughing straight to the bank with that pick.
Marco, he's got 9 goals in the Olympics in his career.
In 8
7 for
games, he's got over a goal per
dude.
game.
I mean, I like the word unicorn there. Make sure you stick with us because we're going to talk about Nick Suzuki and the new line. Oh no! Oh no! He's off Nathan McKinnon's line. We'll talk about that in a second when Canada opens up against Czechia. And I'll remind you, Marco and I will be here live following Canada's debut at this men's Olympics tournament. Very much a business-like approach, led by, as Darren Dreger pointed out on TSN 690, nobody is wound tighter in the National Hockey League than Nathan McKinnon, and he's taken that tightness and that no nonsense approach. Is he here to have fun? No, he says he's here to win gold. So stick with us. We'll talk about Nick Suzuki's new line for Canada and whether or not we see that starting tomorrow morning at 10:40 when puck drops against Czechia. But what about Oliver Kapanen? Obviously, well documented. Habs Nation tunes into this podcast by the millions, by the tens of millions. 18 goals for Oliver Kapanen, brother, but no goals because he didn't play for Finland. Your reaction?
Well, I found it a little interesting. Again, you look at Oliver Kapanen, 18 goals, good for fourth amongst Finnish-born players in the NHL this season as a rookie. 31 points, tied for seventh in the NHL in terms of points. That includes forwards and defensemen in that case. He's also the only right shot center that they have on that roster. It's almost the exact opposite of the Montreal Canadiens. Everybody's a left shot down down the middle there, but Kapanen being the right shot, and he doesn't play. And I found before the game got out of before Slavkovsky's goal, I just felt like one of the things that Finland was missing was guys that were able to get into the soft areas in the slot. And that's ironically Oliver Kapanen's probably greatest tool is his situational awareness and
Mm.
how to just slide in behind coverage and not get noticed. And I feel like, especially when you know that you've got, yeah, I think the only right shot in the entire lineup was Yoel Armia, and the play he made on the goal was a backhand pass. So just to give you an idea, like the handedness is completely off. And I felt like having that mix, especially with the momentum that Oliver Kapanen is on right now, I think would have been a better fit on that fourth line at worst,
Mm.
than a Holla, for example, in that situation, or even on the wing to a degree. Like I wouldn't necessarily have had a problem seeing him over some of the guys that Finland had, on the bottom pair, or sorry, on the bottom line. And I feel like, especially with a team like Slovakia, their best player is Juraj Slafkovsky. Who better to counter him than his own teammate, his own line mate? I feel like there's a strategy in that. And look, I get it. It's the Olympics. You're going to go with experience. So, I 100% get that. But I'd be very curious now to see if they try and get him in, because you're gonna need a spark. Like, yes, you're gonna expect more from Mikko Rantanen, Rupe Heinz, Sebastian Aho. Those guys all need to elevate. It can't be Yoel Armia,
Huh.
Oliver, Yoel Armia, Arturi Lehkonen, Capo Caco. You need your top guys to perform. But I also felt like one of the elements where they were taken advantage of in this game where the Finns was, taking advantage of that soft ice. And to me, I think that opens the door for an Oliver Kapanen.
So we're reacting to Juraj Slafkovsky's national team 4-1 win over Finland. Slav, 2 goals, 1 assist, 3 points. Oh, by the way, should have had a hat trick. Guy's trying to score a goal without a stick into an empty net against Finland.
I look, listen, I watching him try to Ronaldo his way around the
Yeah,
offensive
yeah.
zone with his feet there at the end. When the goal went in, it was like, when Cole Caulfield sees Nick Suzuki score a goal, the look on his face, how he lights up.
Yes.
That was
Yeah.
Juraj Slafkovsky on Rosiska's goal, because he just went ballistic. And I think it was one of the funniest reactions I've seen from an international perspective. But it just goes to show you how tight this team is. And
Yeah.
you look at Slafkovsky, Dvorsky, who had a gorgeous goal as well,
Mhm. Mhm.
and then Nemitz. Those three are the future for Slovakia. Those three are the three that really kind of put Slovakia back on the map at the junior levels, playing in the Ivan Holinka Gretzky tournament back in 2021. Here they are now. They were playing together at the World Championships as well. To me, I think it was indicative that those three really elevated in this game. And to me, Slavkovsky leading the way. I think, again, the leadership was there, despite him being one of the younger players on that team. The effort was consistent, the implication was constant. And, again, being on the ice, not just to chase a Hattie, but being on the ice to
Yeah.
preserve a lead against a team like Finland that was just pouring it on by the end of it, I found to me was indicative of where he is in terms of his development, but how much his country needs him to find success.
And they were successful winning their first medal in Olympic history in 2022 in Beijing. And obviously, big number 20 had a massive hand in that performance. Team Canada and Nick Suzuki. Nick Suzuki, the third youngest player on that team. I think Habs Nation got pretty excited with the possibilities of seeing the Canadians captain next to Nathan McKinnon. But a couple of practices later, one closed door, and now it appears Nick Suzuki on the wing on a fourth line situation with Brad Marchand still, as Canada will keep its top two lines intact
Mhm.
over the practice period. Sidney Crosby on a third line situation. That's got to be morally demoralizing for competing nations. You're like McDavid, McKinnon, Crosby on a third line. Oh, forget about an easy day at the office. But we're here to talk about Suzuki with Bo Horvat and Brad Marchand. Um, what do we make of how John Cooper ultimately is going to put his lines in a blender? And he started to practice already this week.
Man, I would take that fourth line over Team USA's fourth line any day.
I mean, Canada's so deep, man. So
It's
talented.
incredible, and there is to be also understood. Uh, Horvat and Suzuki know each other quite well.
Right.
Big fans of each other's games, right? They've practiced together in the summer, so there is that level of familiarity that they already have. And they also seem the Team Canada wants to keep the duo of Nick Suzuki and Brad Marchand together because they're also on the PK wave together.
That's right.
So I think that combination is going to stick. I think you just may see the centers change. And listen, John Cooper's style, for anybody who follows the Tampa Bay Lightning, he's like Michel Terry on steroids when it comes to blending his lines. He'll do it in game, no problem. We saw it at the Four Nations, and when we asked him about it at the Four Nations, he's like, "I have the best players in the world here. I can't stay static. I have to adapt to the game in front of me." And so he's going to be able to do that. So I wouldn't freak out in terms of like where a player starts in this tournament. I think, and I've always believed this, going back to his junior days, I always felt like Nick Suzuki was underrated. And then as kind of the tournaments would go on, he would just climb. And that's exactly what we saw, when he played in the World Juniors in 2018. He started off in a bottom six role, ended the tournament on a top six role, playing first wave of the power play. With the Canadians starting a fourth line role as a rookie, finished the season as their second line center. Like
Hmm.
it's just the way what he does. So I'm not necessarily worried in that regard. Keep an eye on guys like Wilson, Mark Stone. Those are guys that might not have the necessary foot speed, have the intelligence, but you may want to swap them out at certain points to put in. Well, in Stone's case, he is a very good defensive forward, but in Wilson's case, maybe you swap Marchand or Suzuki onto that line with McDavid and Celebrini, or you take Celebrini off and you flip Marchand and Suzuki on that top line if you really want to kind of own that ice and play a strong defensive game, because you got to know that when the games are going to get tighter, it's normal that some of the younger players are going to get a shorter leash. That includes Nick Suzuki.
Here we are on this Wednesday afternoon recording in the aftermath of Juraj Slafkovsky's 3-point performance. And to wrap up, I guess, this discussion on Team Canada, John Cooper said after practice that he was going to tell his starting goaltender basically now. It's like 8, 9 o'clock as we record here just before 2 p.m. on Wednesday afternoon in Montreal.
Mhm.
So fast forward 6 hours on the clock. Yeah, we're talking about like just before 8 p.m. In Italy. So I would imagine Marco Jordan Binnington knows that he's starting tomorrow morning against Czechia.
Yeah,
Why not? It's a trust thing, right? I mean, they know him from the
why
Four Nations.
not?
Guy's a battler, right?
I mean, listen, give it a shot, see what happens.
Yeah.
This is what the round robins are for, is to test out your goalies. Whoever comes out looking more impressive is the goalie you go with in these in the elimination settings. If you feel, and if fans are understandably nervous when it comes to Binnington, I get it. And if they're right, well, the results will show. Like maybe Canada wins their next game, but Binnington is otherwise unimpressive. Like it could happen. I think Logan Thompson is the best goalie for this job.
Yeah.
But a lot of these tournaments is going with experience, and we see this a lot. Like throwing players to the wolves in this case, not always the best chance. The problem I have with this though is you're not dealing with young goaltenders. You're just dealing with goaltenders that haven't been on the stage before. And to a degree, neither is Binnington on an Olympic stage, but at least he had the Four Nations. So I get starting with Binnington, but I think eventually the law of averages will play out. And I think they're going to go with Logan Thompson, when the games start getting a little bit more important. That's the
All
way I
right.
see it. And I feel the same way with like Nick Suzuki, by the way. Like, hold your horses, don't freak
Yeah,
out.
totally.
He's going to be used on the penalty kill.
Yeah.
They're going to roll all four lines during this tournament. And then when the chips are on the table, I have utter confidence that a guy like Nick Suzuki is going to get tapped on the shoulder by John Cooper.
So make sure you hit that like and subscribe button, turn the notification bell on. We'll be here tomorrow after Canada and Czechia open up the Canadian side of this men's Olympic hockey tournament. Can't wait to watch it. Can't wait to be here and see the chat go off and seeing how our Canadian men perform. Hopefully, they can draw some inspiration here and to be all business and show that in game number 1. And D'Amico and Star will be here all Olympic tournament long. Marco, good stuff. As always, fun to see Habs Nation react to their young player showing up big time for his national team.
Arrivederci.
Ciao.